My name is Annalise Christine. Welcome to my channel if you are new. Welcome back if you've seen one of my videos before. Today we're going to do my weekly reads episode number 4. This is technically January 21st through the 31st, which I finished 9 books, but I will say the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, I did not finish any books. So the first book that I finished on the 24th was The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the first book in the Grandest Game series. I would highly recommend reading the Inheritance Game series before this, only because the Inheritance Games, you meet Avery and the 4 Hawthorne brothers and get to know them. They're the ones that set up the game in this book. Some contestants they picked and some had to find clues, but they all are sent to this island. The game does not conclude in the first book. We only get part of it. We are introduced to the 7 contestants, and then one of the Hawthorne brothers ends up being a contestant, and with that you get a bunch of different points of view, and then the contestants are broken into 3 groups, and those groups each have different clues to figure out. And so I feel like there was a lot going on. This would be a perfect like bingeable book, but in my life I was having to stop and start a lot, which definitely deteriorated my reading experience, to be honest, not because of the book, but just the way that I was having to read it in little spurts. With that being said, however, I still really enjoyed the book and ended up giving it 4 stars. The book I finished on the 25th was Home to Holly Springs by Jan Karon. So I'm reading Home to Holly Springs by Jan Karon, so let's talk about it a little bit. I am 74% of the way done. However, I've stopped and started this book so many times just because of library loans coming due and things like that. This book is very renewable, and so it's always put on the back burner. Plus, this is the 10th book in the Mitford Years series, and I believe every other book except for maybe one other one I've listened to on audiobook, and I absolutely love that because this is very slice of life. So I feel like I can just go about my day. I'm just like hearing about someone's life, and I really like that. I don't love just like sitting down and reading about it. I feel like you just get bored, but audiobook wise, I love it. So we are 74% of the way done. I'm hoping to have this book finished by today. We will see. So I'm gonna sit down and read it and see how it goes. I finished Home to Holly Springs. I realized I didn't tell you what it was about, but it follows Father Tim, and he has been our main character throughout the books, but he is going home to Holly Springs. That's where he's from. He hasn't been there in years and years and years. There's a lot of things that happened in that town, and he had no desire to go back, but he gets to know asking him to come back, and so he goes. While he's there, he obviously sees people from his past, and so he has a perception of things that happen, and after talking to others in the town, it's just interesting to see their different points of view. And then there's a huge family secret that he ends up finding out, and then he has to decide if he's going to help with the family secret or not, and what that's going to look like, and just deal with what the secret means. I really liked the book. It's just a little slower going. We get to learn a lot about Father Tim's past, which I really appreciate. I feel like you understand a little bit more of why he does what he does. I did give this book 3.5 stars. The book I finished on the 26th was Outlander by Diane Gabaldon. I've somehow never known what this is about, and I listened to this on audiobook, which I would highly recommend. This book is long, this series is long, and so that is why I didn't finish books for a few days, because I was like just plugging away at Outlander. In short, this book is about Claire. She is from 1945. The war has just ended. She is on vacation with her husband. She ends up going through standing stones and ends up in Scotland in 1743. She obviously is trying to get back home. She, as a woman, has a lot of knowledge that women of the time should not have. She was a nurse in the war. There's very much a culture shock. She does meet James or Jamie, and he is a Scottish lord, but there is lots of drama in and around his life. And so Claire's trying to figure out how to get back, but also her and Jamie are starting to feel things for each other. I'm excited to continue this series. I'm really glad I chose to listen to it on audiobook, and I gave this book 4 stars. I finished Nora Goes Off Script on January 27th. So please ignore my hair. My shower's been out of commission for like 24 hours at this point, and it was hair wash day yesterday. So it's really looking crazy today, but hopefully in the next few hours, our renovations in there will be basically complete so I can take a shower. I'm at the 50% mark with Nora Goes Off Script by Annabel Monaghan. This is a small town romance. However, these books are not fun romances. I don't know if this makes sense. It's more like real life romance. In this book, we meet Nora. She has 2 kids. She is a romance movie writer. She does write one movie that's more about her real life and about how her husband left and wasn't the best. They end up filming some of it at her house, and a very famous actor, Leo, plays her husband, and he ends up liking this small town, ends up staying a little bit longer and getting involved with her kids. And at 50% in, I'm a little shocked that we're dealing with an issue right now. I thought it would be like the third act breakup. We're like in the middle act breakup at this point. So I think it's really interesting. I'm curious to see what happens from that. I have some ideas. And I will say, since she's a romance script writer, there's many times where it's like a happy ending could happen and it doesn't. And so they play into that a lot in this book. I end up giving that book 4 stars. Also on the 27th, I finished A Gallagher Wedding. This is a very short, almost extended epilogue of the Gallagher Girls series. Technically, it is book 6.5. And we get to see Cammie, who's been our female main character, her friends. Her mom is getting married. I don't want to give away who her mom is getting married to because it's kind of been a question throughout the series. And I believe it's like a year later, so we get to see what all of these girls have done once they graduated high school, because they were at a spy school, so they are all over the planet doing all kinds of things. I liked it. It definitely just felt like an extended epilogue, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. On the 29th, I ended up finishing Know My Name by Chanel Miller. It is a memoir about her. She was Emily Doe in the Brock Turner. We get to see how that night changed her life and her feelings throughout it. I finished Know My Name by Chanel Miller, and this is such a heartbreaking but powerful story. I can't even describe the way that she articulates things that happen and her emotions, and how, as a woman, I very much have felt many of the things she has felt and understand what she's saying in the world that we live in. And so I just think it's a really powerful story. I'm really glad I listened to it because it's also her voice, which I also think is so powerful, to listen to memoirs in the author's voice. You get their emotion throughout the book. Her writing is beautiful. She explains a little bit where she got her beautiful writing from. I just think it's a really powerful story, and I'm really glad that she was able to write it and share it. I end up giving that book 5 stars. Also on the 29th, the ebook I finished was The Final Offer by Lauren Asher. I'm currently 74% into Final Offer by Lauren Asher. It's the third and final book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, where we're following the 3 Kane brothers. This one is about Callahan. He used to be a hockey player, but he got hurt, and so he medicated himself, which was not a good solution. And with that, he ended up becoming an addict. And so he's been working through that. His old girlfriend, Alana, ended up getting in the thick of this and wasn't good for her. And so the way to get his inheritance is to sell this lake house, but he has to live there first. And Lana and her daughter live there as well. So he has to have forced proximity with Lana, which his grandpa knew because his grandpa told Lana she could live there, and he's not allowed to tell anyone about his inheritance job. So definitely a very interesting dynamic. I don't know if it's Lana or Cal or them together. I don't know. I just don't love them. And so I'm not loving this book, but I will finish it. Like I said, I'm 74% of the way done. It is a 600-page book. I do have like 160 pages left, so not a short amount, but it's a quick read, but I just don't love it, and I'm not reading for the couple, if that makes sense at this point. I don't know what could change my mind at this point. I just have a really hard time with second chance romances if I don't think the original problem was solved, and I don't know if the original problem was solved. I feel like we are moving in the right direction, and I just don't know if it's my past, but I just was very hesitant to want the relationship to work out. I can see it, but I don't know. Second chance romances, you really have to get me to believe that they have changed, and I just wasn't fully on board that Callahan had changed. One thing I really liked about this story, though, is we get to see the other 2 couples, and it was so fun to see them not in their own books, but kind of like their relationship with Callahan. I really liked that part of the story, and that was the redeeming part for me, because I just couldn't get behind the couple. I ended up giving that book 3.5 stars. The book I finished on the 30th was The Mistletoe Mystery by Nita Prose. This is part of the Molly the Maid series. It's kind of a Christmas novella, as we are following Molly. In the second book, we did not see her boyfriend at all, Juan. He was out of the country, actually, and so he comes back. He starts acting a little fishy. Molly's very nervous about him. She hasn't had a lot of people stay and love her, and so she's just really nervous about Juan and some questionable things that she's noticed. On top of that, the hotel where she works, holiday parties coming up, and she has gotten burned at that before, and so she's also very anxious about that party. And so the end is her at the party with Juan figuring out everything that's been going on. I end up giving that book 4 stars. The book I finished on the 31st was Friday Night Lights by H.G. Bissinger, a nonfiction story about the 1988 Odessa, Texas football team. It's high school. So far I'm like 5% in, I think, and it reminds me very much of Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans is one of my favorite movies. My dad was a coach growing up for multiple sports, but including football. And then my brother played football growing up, and now he is a coach. I've just been around sports a lot, especially football. On top of that, my dad has coached at various schools, and just to see the football program at those different schools was very eye-opening. I definitely am intrigued about this book, and I'm really looking forward to listening to it and hear. We're getting different players' information as we are learning about this team, and they're going through the preseason, and I'm on like when they're in their first game. I have not watched the TV series. I wanted to, then I realized it was a book, so I thought I would read it first. But it is about the 1988 Odessa, Texas, West Texas like football team. It's a very small town, but they talk about how the economy and how integration has affected them as a whole, and then affected their school and their football team, because the town loves football. They're a town that goes all out for football. There's a lot of characters in the book, a lot of people that you're trying to keep track of. So I feel like we got a little bit of why maybe characters did what they did, but we didn't necessarily hone in on one. It was more of an overview of quite a few characters. I did like this book because in the one I specifically listened to, they had a afterword for 25 years later, and we get to see the players, what they're doing now. It was interesting to see some of the thoughts that the players had in high school and how it translated into their life, because there was definitely some struggles with some of the players later in life. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So those were the 9 books that I finished at the end of January. Let me know if you've read any of the books. Have a great day. Bye.